when there are ideas that students have that come into being. So one of my favorite things is like the fight for an RJ coordinator position last year, and the organizing that happened around the event. How powerful that was. It was amazing to see students speak out and be like, we want an RJ coordinator at this school. And to speak that truth to power and for there to be an RJ coordinator this year, it was amazing. That was such a great event and it was super powerful. Latinx Power Assembly, when students are coordinating and figuring out what they want to do and organizing it, and then an event happens. That's super amazing to see. And I feel like when it's centered around culture, that is what really makes me happy. Like I think about, like some folks at the end of the Latinx Power Assembly, for some people who noticed, like everybody came down and danced at the end, and they danced how you would dance at a quinceañera, or like, and everybody danced together. Like at that whole, like the sound is awful. I apologize. I came in for 3 hours the day before and tried to get the sound right, but the sound system sucks. It was awful. I apologize. I tried my best. But there was a lot of good things during that assembly, but everybody dancing together at the end, I have not been able to like let that go because it was beautiful. And everybody was out there and happy, and it was just like such a great moment that it's really stuck with me how important it is that we're sharing our culture and in spaces where everybody can see how amazing that is. And I know it's a simple thing and it's just a dance together, but that was a powerful moment. It was really great. So it's things like that when we're seeing students do something that's important to them and they're sharing it with everybody because it is important. So yeah.
Sharing how you got into education, Jeff?
Yeah.
I just remember you came and talked to this class 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I found that story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like Shar. I mean, in many ways, like I didn't come around, like I came into it because of my own history of school not being good, right? Like, and it being difficult and not coming from a place of stability. So my story is a very like random one in the sense that I kind of did my own thing too to get to where I'm at today. And I became an educator largely because my brothers both dropped out of high school, both very intelligent, both capable, but we were going through a lot. So like in my home, there was a lot of trauma, alcoholism, and abuse that was going on. So it was a heavy space. And so for myself, I saw how my brothers couldn't manage that and then go to school, and that there wasn't a space for them there, and they just were continually being told that they were stupid. And I specifically remember my older brother just being like, man, he really believed it. He fell into that trap of like, these people at school are telling me I'm stupid. I really think I'm stupid, and that was heavy on him. And being the oldest and dealing with most of the trauma that was going on in the home, it was really tough for him. And so like when I first started even contemplating being an educator, it was because I realized how messed up the system was in relation to my own family and how they got tossed out and it didn't work for them. And it was damaging long term for them because it didn't go well. And so when I decided, like, I have generations of teachers. So my grandmother, my great-grandmother were teachers. There's been teachers in my family. Everybody's been like, you should be a teacher. I was like, hell no. I'm not going to be a teacher. School sucked for me. I hated it. Like, I did not want to go. I skipped a bunch. I was in trouble all the time. So school for me was, I was like, why would I go torture myself and go back into that? That's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. But then there was a moment that I had. I went and I was doing improv theater. And there's a nonprofit here in Portland called Oregon Outreach. And one of the people that I did improv with, his aunt ran the school. And he was like, yo, you should come in and you should be a substitute teacher. And I was like, and I've been working with kids, right? So most of my life, like what I've been doing is camps, I worked for Portland Parks and Rec and did outreach to students and did different things with them. And then I did, like, the SMART program, Start Making a Reader Today, at struggling schools. So my history was like to like dig in, and I was already going in that direction. And I was like, I don't know, man. And because this is a tough school too, right? So we're talking about Northeast Portland back in the day, where the school was pretty rough. Everybody, a lot of the students were gang affected and gang affiliated. So there were a lot of different folks in the building, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna do this. Let's go. I'm fine. I'm gonna come in. And so what happens when I walk up in that building the first time is they hand me a package, and they're like, you're gonna be teaching sex ed today.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, y'all just set me up to come in and teach a health class on sex education with students that I don't know. This is going to be ridiculous. I don't even know what I'm going to do. And so I looked at the material, and the material was all about healthy relationships, right? And I'm like, oh wow, okay. I took a deep breath, and I was like, it don't matter. We're going to figure it out. You know, I did improv. I was like, I'll just improv through this. It's fine. It's going to be good. And I went in, and we started the class, and the students filtered in, and it's a rough crew, so there's a lot of language and things that are going on that are inappropriate. And I'm like moving through that the best that I can, but then we start talking about relationships, and what happens is bitch this, hoe that, people start talking real like negatively about other folks, and it's really gender specific and kind of coming from a sexist perspective, right, around like who's doing what. And I just like Miseducation of Lauryn Hill had just come out, one of my favorite albums, and I've got the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, which is an amazing album if you have not listened to it. But it's all about education, and it's talking about the classroom. It starts off in the classroom, and I've got like words from the album rolling through my head, and I'm like, man, I got to figure out how we're going to teach in this situation. And so then I started talking about like, the vulnerability in some of the language that they were utilizing, which was, why are you already disregarding somebody by calling them something that's negative? You're saying you want trust in a relationship, but you're not offering any trust. What does this really mean? And the conversation switched up, and they started being really respectful for each other, and we got into this really deep conversation around what does trust really mean and how do we do that. And people were sharing about how they came from broken homes and broken spaces, and so they didn't know how to do that. So it turned into this crazy, dope, deep conversation that I'm like, wow, like you all are amazing. You're actually now respecting each other. You're talking about what's really going on with you. And I left that school that day, and as I was walking out of the school, 3 kids ran up to me, and they're like, we need you here. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. I was like, oh, dang, like that's heavy. And it felt so good. I was like, to have somebody say that. And I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to get in and do this. And this was, 16 years ago. And I was like, okay, I feel that. I feel like I need to be here too. I got hired the next day. Because of how well that good. Yeah, that was my interview was the health class that I went in and did.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How big was the class, and how much time did you have? I'm just like considering that it was a class time.
Yeah.
And it was like an hour and 30-ish minutes.
Yeah. It was.
And you shared, like, you created a whole entire new environment with the same people that came there.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, and they didn't know me. And so, like, the folks that were, like, being open and honest about, like, serious stuff that is going on in their lives and sharing, like, how it felt to be, like, heartbroken and, like, to come from spaces that were really rough. It was a very unique situation. Like, I think about it, I thought about it for years, and I still think about it sometimes. There was about an hour and a half, and there were 24 students that were in there. I was wearing a hip-hop, like a shirt from AC Alone and Abstract Rude, the A-Team, which was underground hip-hop group back in the day. And students recognized it right away. They're like, oh, you know about AC Alone? And I was like, yeah, I know about AC Alone. And so, like, it wasn't just, like, the conversation. They noticed that I was, like, I could be there. You know, like, and it was really an amazing thing to have that amount of time and do it in that amount of time. And then it traveled up. Because after that class, it went up to everybody, and then I got a job. Because it wasn't me that went and said, you know, you should give me a job. It was the students who went up and were like, you need to hire this guy, right? This guy should probably work here. So that was a cool thing that it happened like that. And then I'm sorry, that was like the beginning of me getting in 16 years ago. And then I worked for that same nonprofit for 14 years, working with students in Northeast Portland, largely in many different capacities. But I was a teacher that entire time, and then I ran a school for 5 of those years. I was teaching and principal at the same time, which is a very interesting dynamic to me.
Kind word.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So are you sharing that? Just also makes me think, I know there are other schools in our district that have this, but students sit on interview panels in other schools in our district, and I wish we had that opportunity.
Yeah.
Can we have that during the summer? Sorry, I heard about us interviewing a new principal.
Yeah, you have to fill out an application to sit in on the principal interviews. I don't know if any students were on the interview.
There is one thing I want to add to that story that I just told, is that I did not have an education, right? I went to college like Shar. I was there for 1 year. I dropped out, came out here, got involved in the community, was doing different things, and this happened. And so I didn't have a degree when I did this. I actually was running a school without a degree, because I had learned so much from being in the classroom and doing what I was doing and paying attention, and I was actually on top of best practices and reading around like, hey, what can we do to shift the school? And I was with a group of people that we were being pretty innovative around how we were approaching what we were doing. I did that without a degree. And then Carla Gay, who was in the equity department previously, worked with our school, and she had helped out. And she came in one day while I was helping students fill out the FAFSA, and she's like, why don't you fill out the FAFSA? And I was like, why? And she's like, well, there's this really great like award you can get, the Ford Family Scholarship. And I was like, well, she says there's the Ford Restart. And so she's like, fill it out. And so I filled out my FAFSA, and I heard back that I got accepted for an interview for the scholarship that paid for everything, for me to go back to school. And because of the work that I had done previously and the work that I was doing, I got invited in for that interview, and I rocked the interview. I killed it. I was like, I knocked it out the box. I was like, I have this scholarship. There's no question it's happening. Now, getting to the interview is an interesting story. I might share that at another time. But I did kill the interview, and it was great. And I knew as soon as I walked out of that room, I was like, I'm gonna get to go back to college, and they're gonna pay for it. And so then I worked full time at the school and went back to college at the same time to get my degree, which was challenging, very challenging, but it was good, and I learned a lot, and it opened up a lot of different doors for me once I got that degree that weren't open before, and I was very happy that I was able to do that. And so it's funny that Carla Gay did that, and then I swore to God I would never work for this district. I was like, I'm not. I dealt with so many students that were kicked out of the district. Like, that was my whole life. Everybody that didn't make it here came in, you know, like, we were the end of the line. We were the school where if you couldn't make it anywhere else, you came to us. And I have a sense of pride around that because it was beautiful. And I still do. I love my students. A couple of them reached out to me this last week because it was my birthday. But like that feeling around like what that school meant and what it is was really important to me, and it stays with me because it transformed me and it made me a better educator. It made me the person that I'm in, because it's not about like, I understand the importance of what people are going through first and trying to figure that out. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, how are you legally able to be the principal without a degree?
Great question. So at that point in time, within nonprofits, as long as you had somebody with an admin license that was over you as a supervisor, you did not have to have your admin